Try and move through the presentation swiftly. So Destiny Pharma, as many will know, we're listed on AIM since the autumn of 2017, and we're developing medicines to prevent infections. And we're at a very exciting stage with 2 late-stage clinical assets. So I'll just move through the disclaimer. You can read at your leisure. I'm here representing the team, but as you can see from the presentation, indeed more details on the website. We have a strong management team with great experience and a very strong non-executive team, including a representative who we have great relations with our Chinese investor, China Medical Systems, who have supported the company through financing. They own 11% of the company, but also have rights for the portfolio in China. A great relationship there. And as I said, strong board for the stage we're at. So our 5-year plan is to build a bigger company, and we are ambitious and wanting to build a larger company with a bigger valuation. We believe currently we have the assets in the pipeline that can drive us forward over the next few years. Obviously, late stage clinical assets have the potential to deliver significant value. We have a focus on the prevention of infection, hospital markets, and we have 2 streams of technologies, as it were, our in-house XF platform that we invented, and also 2 new assets which have moved us into the exciting area of the microbiome. We've shown we can expand through in-licensing, and in the future maybe M&A. And definitely at the moment, though, we're focusing on delivering from the current pipeline, and with that we're also seeking additional commercial partners, as we have done in the past with our deal with China Medical Systems. But prevention is better than cure, and unfortunately we all are very much more aware this year, over the past 18 months, due to the impact of COVID-19, of the importance of preventing infections and of course managing infections. COVID-19 is a viral infection, but it's associated with bacterial infections, and the principles are the same. There's a lack of effective treatments for bacterial, fungal, and antiviral infections, and the world needs better treatments. And in the area of bacteria, another issue is anti-microbial resistance, or superbugs, who are able to adapt to some of the older treatments and generate resistant strains which can't be treated. And what the world needs again is new, modern, novel infection prevention medicines, and that's what we're looking to do. And this global concern is reflected in missives from the G7, WHO, and governments, but also increasing investor and pharmaceutical company interest. There's a clear clinical need, and there's increasing awareness of the commercial opportunity as well. So what we have, Destiny at a glance, 2 late-stage clinical assets from different technologies. Our homegrown XF73 program, which is a nasal gel to prevent post-surgical infections caused by a bacteria called Staphylococcus aureus, recently completed very successfully its phase 2 study. We announced that data at the end of March, but we also, at the end of last year, licensed another asset that completed phase 2, anti-CDM3, which is to prevent the recurrence of C. difficile infections. So 2 strong phase 2 packages, which we're now looking to move towards their phase 3 and hopefully their final clinical studies before they can be approved and launched as products. Both are focused programs with good clinical data, clear clinical need, and very good commercial opportunities. We also have an earlier pipeline, including our own COVID project, funded by an £800,000 Innovate UK taxpayers' money, which we're putting to good use with our partner Sporgen and the University of Liverpool. And a decent cash position. We have cash to run the company until the back end of next year, but we don't currently have the financing to start the phase 3 studies that we want to start next year, and we'll look to seek that through a combination of partnering, equity financing, and possibly grants as well. But very strong late stage pipeline with a clear focus. As shown here on this slide, anti-CDM3 is our newest asset, but also our most advanced, so it sits at the top. And the 2 orange assets here, M3 and Sporkov, have moved us into this area of the microbiome biotherapeutic projects based on live bacterial spores naturally occurring. And as I said, this is a very on-trend avenue of research with some very interesting developments to develop new treatments, be they for gut infections or indeed improving the treatments of oncology and neurology as well. So an exciting area, but we're already very happy with our XF platform and the XF73 nasal program, which has been our lead program for many years until we in-licensed M3. So C. difficile is a nasty gut infection caused by toxic strains of the bacteria Clostridioides difficile. 500,000 cases in the US are reported, 29,000 deaths, a multi-billion-dollar healthcare burden, and also it is a concern across other Western countries, Europe, Australasia, and Japan as well, with incidents of C. diff infection, which is poorly treated. When antibiotics are used, they can kill the initial strains of the toxic C. diff, but some survive and then they flourish in a microbiome that is disrupted by the use of antibiotics. So you end up with this debilitating cascade of recurrence. Initially 25% recurrence after initial treatment, but then increasing recurrence. And remember, this is a gut infection, an infection of the colon, irritation. One of the indications is that you have a C. diff infection is diarrhea, and in the acute cases, over 10 episodes a day, often in elderly, frail patients who are suffering already from either just being very old and frail, but also perhaps other indications. And the last thing you want on top of this is a very nasty gut infection, which is also easily transmitted between patients in a ward. So a serious problem which needs new treatments. And what we have in license is a phase 2 package of a novel product called NT-CDM3. The NT stands for non-toxigenic C. difficile. So it's a naturally occurring strain of the bug, but it doesn't cause the C. diff infections. What it actually does is it proliferates in the gut and stops the toxic strains of C. diff proliferating. So it acts as a kind of ground cover and stopping the toxic strain developing, protects the microbiome and allows the colon and the gut to recover. So a really novel approach. It's actually a naturally occurring strain. So in a small percentage of the population in America, it exists. And by extracting that strain and developing it as a medicine, Professor Girding, who discovered this and now is a key consultant for us, has developed a package which has completed phase 2s and shown great data in protecting the gut and stopping the recurrence of these infections. So a very safe, naturally occurring product, which is really, as I said, fits in very well with the current enthusiasm for developments from the human microbiome. Completed phase 2s in America, a quite high quality phase 2 study, which showed with the most effective dose only a 5% rate of recurrence, which is class leading data. So that means 95% of patients who had had one event of a C. diff infection did not have that recurring. And other companies that are working in this space with their compounds or fecal matter formulations, which are extracted from the healthy microbiome through extraction of and treatment of feces, they're not managing to reduce the rate of recurrence to 5%. Most are struggling to get anywhere near 10%. So class-leading data from phase 2. If we can repeat that in the planned phase 3, we are well on the way to having a class-leading clinical product, which will offer us a great commercial opportunity. We see a market size of several $100 million in the US alone, and a great opportunity. What we've done during the due diligence, we've had discussions with the FDA, with Professor Girding, and we've now got clarity on the phase 3 plan. This was something we completed before we acquired the asset late last year, and we know it's a single phase 3, an 800 patient study, a double-blind placebo comparator. So we understand the cost of the study, and we're developing our plans, as I said, to look to start that study next year. In the meantime, with the funds we raised in December, we're completing the manufacturing, and it's a very important process in all drug development, the high quality and scale up of manufacturing. As you move through clinical studies for phase 3s towards commercialization, you have to have a robust and at scale manufacturing process. And this, as a live bacterial spore, is different to classical organic chemistry. It is a different process, it's a fermentation, but of course it has to be done to the various highest standards, and that's what we've been developing this year with a very expert contractor, and we'll be ready to deliver clinical supplies in the first half of next year. So a really exciting program, very pleased to bring it into our portfolio. As I said, it's based on great phase 2 data. It can be used alongside existing therapies and some of the new potential therapies. So it has great flexibility in its eventual use. It's naturally occurring, so it's very, very safe. very rapid and effective, an easy tablet to take in the morning with a glass of water, and it's a temporary protection of the gut microbiome, so it does not disrupt or distort what would be a patient's natural microbiome. It gives you that protection for the period of risk, and we can make it cheaply, and it can fit very well into the hospital care home environment, where patients perhaps aren't always blessed with the best healthcare insurance or budget support, especially in the US. So that's M3, which is an asset which is clearly positioned to prevent the recurrence of an infection. But now we come to our second asset, which we're still really passionate about. So we haven't lost interest in XF73. That's not why we bought in the M3 asset. We bought the M3 asset in because it's another high quality program. But XF73 is a nasal gel we've been developing to take with patients who are diagnosed as being carriers of Staphylococcus aureus in the nose through screening. A third of the world is a carrier. If you are a carrier of Staphylococcus aureus in the nose, it's well established that you have a greater risk of post-surgical infection, because the bacteria can, in simple description, jump from your nose into the open wound as you're being operated on and replicate there, and if not killed, as it were, lead to post-surgical infections. And there's some grisly pictures showing what can happen. It's relatively rare, but when it happens, it's incredibly damaging for the health and recovery of the patient, and of course, the associated healthcare cost. The market size is driven by the tens of millions of operations that are carried out in the US alone, which put the patient at risk of a post-surgical infection. And of course, it's similar opportunities in Europe and Asia, as validated by the interest from our Chinese partner, and other discussions we've had with experts in that area. So a really interesting product. It sounds very simple, a nasal gel, but what we're doing here, we're looking to de-risk the chance of infection during that period of risk, which is when you're cut open for the operation. And our recent phase 2 data is fantastic data which supports the profile which we're trying to develop. So it comes from our own XF pipeline, and it's XF73. It's always had great activity against bacteria in terms of killing them at various stages of growth. And what we've done now with this phase 2 study, the recent study, is shown in patients going in for cardiac surgery that we can decolonize them, and effectively they went into the surgery with the levels of nasal carriage of the bacteria greatly reduced, in many cases zero. There's a raft of academic papers and epidemiology studies supporting the approach. Indeed, the one on the left here from the US Cardiac Surgeon Society is music to our ears, because they're saying with the highest level of recommendation, all patients who go in for cardiac surgery should be decolonized, and XF73 has the potential to be that exact product that delivers what they want: a fast, rapid, safe decolonization. So also with XF platform and XF73, we can make great claims regarding resistance, because it's clearly differentiated to other antibiotics, anti-infectives, in terms of, this is a classical microbiological study showing that despite repeated exposures up to 55 of XF drugs to MRSA, the MRSA does not become resistant. We're still killing it. Whereas other antibiotics, mupirocin, fusidic acid in this chart, unfortunately, after several exposures, you begin to see the rise of superbugs. And this is the problem that has led to the threat of antimicrobial resistance. XF73 has the potential to be clearly differentiated and have the benefit of not generating superbugs. So we've recently reported the phase 2 data, which you perhaps would have seen, and now we're in discussions with regulators regarding phase 3 plans. We've had some early discussions with the FDA. We're now planning to talk to EMA, and it will take us several months as we collate the feedback and decide on the next steps. But obviously what we want to do, definitely by Q4, is to have a clear plan for the phase 3s for XF73, as we have for our other lead asset, M3. This is the study design. The red stars are the doses over 24 hours of XF73 that were given to patients in the comparator compared to placebo. Note that the only really other product at the moment, mupirocin for nasal decolonization, an old antibiotic, has to be given 5 days before surgery. Ours can be given just in 24 hours before surgery. And I'll move on to the best slide to show the data, perhaps, is, oh, sorry, if I go back one, is this slide showing that you see the red stars, the doses, and what happens with the blue bars, that you can see the real knockdown of the nasal carriage in the XF73 group. This is a sort of 99% removal of the bacteria in the nose. You never achieve 100%. There was a small placebo effect, which is just a few percent. In fact, 0.5%. So a really significant, statistically significant result from our phase 2, a 10 out of 10 result as described by our Chief Medical Officer, showing that XS73 kills the staphylococcus in the nose prior to surgery and for the period of surgery to reduce the risk of the patient. So just moving forward, very strong data, at least 99.5% or 2.5 log reduction in nasal carriage was statistically significant. It's a great backdrop as we move towards phase 3 discussions. It confirms again the potential, the target product profile for XS73. It's safe, it's easy to use, and it has the benefit as well of not generating superbugs. Compared to mupirocin, this old antibiotic, which is approved in Europe, it's not approved in America, some clear advantages there. And a safer product. It has a broader spectrum of activity, shorter dosing period, and of course it's novel and non-irritant, and addresses a clear need. There is no approved product in America for this market, and we, with our QID support from the FDA, have a great opportunity, if we can deliver successful data in the phase 3, to deliver this sort of potential blockbuster product to the market. In terms of partners, we have a China partner who have rights for China region. We'll be looking to talk to other partners, as you'd expect as a biotech, and we'll see where we get to with announcing deals there in the future. We've obviously done other deals in the past 12 months in licensing deals and grant support. In terms of key events for the timeline looking forward, we still have it here, but we're very proud to have delivered great phase 2b results from XS73. We're having discussions with the FDA and EMA on regulatory plans for the phase 3 with XS73. But in the meantime, we're pushing ahead with M3, finalising the planning and progressing the CMC, and concurrently looking at funding, be it partnering and investors or non-dilutive grants to fund those phase 3s. And we want to start definitely one phase 3 in 2022 and potentially have the opportunity to start 2. And thereafter, we move forward towards the next few years towards having, hopefully with partners, being able to file for product approval if we can deliver good phase 3 results. And of course, in the meantime, we'll develop the earlier pipeline. I'll stop there. Thank you very much. A whistle through, but welcome any questions. Thank you.
Can you please give further detail on the funding for phase 3, i.e. funds to be raised via equity or loan, what percentage to a partner? I dare say you might not be able to answer that fully, but if you could just reiterate how you see that fundraising working.
Yes, no, I mean, we have to be clear that we need additional finance to start and carry out phase 3s. That's no surprise. And where that funds will come from, a combination of partnering deals, upfront payments and contributions to the development costs, equity component. Of course, we're a listed company. One of the reasons to be a listed company is to have the ability to access capital markets, and there is also the potential for grant support as well in this space. So we always refer to that combination as being the way we could fund the future developments. It's what we've done in the past, and I can't really give any more detail than that, but we are open that given our current cash position, we're well funded for what we want to do over the next 12-18 months. But to start those studies, we will need to seek partners, grants or equity financing to push ahead.
Would you try and raise money and for both late stage phase 2 assets for the round phase 3 program, try and do them both at the same time or one at a time?
Well, I think we definitely, one is further advanced. So the M3 program is 6 months to 12 months further advanced because we've got all that, the clarity on the phase 3 that's required. So I think it'll be a challenge to start them both at the same time. Of course, our ambition is to want to do that, but I think realistically there is a separation. Obviously, again, it's a little bit early to start talking about timings and quantums of any fundings, but I think if we can see, and we do say that M3 is further ahead, so there's a logic subject to obviously interest from partners, investors, grant authorities, that M3 is the lead project, so would be the priority for financial support where we currently stand.
Okay. Assuming the phase 3 data for C. diff product meets expectations, what sort of pricing do you anticipate you'll be able to achieve for the product?
Yeah, it's a good question, and pricing is important in this market. We're doing some more studies at the moment to look at in Europe and US at price sensitivity, but we have done it in the past, and definitely in America. The treatment of C. diff, there is a couple of products that have been approved in the past years, but they're very, very expensive. So they're several $1,000s, and that has prevented their uptake and wide usage. because physicians can just use very cheap old antibiotics, which, although perhaps they're not very good in some cases, they are a treatment, and of course they're a lot cheaper than the expensive ones. The nature of both M3 and XF73 nasal is that they can both be made at relatively low cost. So we have a starting point of a low cost of goods, which means we have flexibility on pricing. Of course, it's dangerous to start talking about actual pricing now when we haven't started phase 3s, but obviously we look at that in our modelling, and we believe we can have a competitive price which will enhance its uptake, but at the same time enable us to get a good commercial return, which of course we must get to deliver sort of the valuation potential of the programs.
Next one, how does the nasal gel beat topical iodine?
Well, it's topical iodine. I mean, it's first of all backed up by better clinical data. It's a targeted therapy, whereas some of the iodines, chlorhexidine, antiseptics are sort of more general. Will kill a lot of things. Not very precise. They can also be, of course, irritancy. But yes, there are some iodine or povidone wipes which are used. But we believe XF73 nasal has the benefit of targeted therapy. It's killing Staphylococcus aureus, particularly also in biofilms. It also addresses AMR. It does not lead to the generation of resistant superbug strains, and there is evidence that some of the antiseptic approaches do generate resistant strains. So yes, there's some competition, but XF73 nasal fits very well into what is currently best practice, which is a nasal ointment of mupirocin, which is an old antibiotic. We're delivering a very modern preventative anti-microbial XF73 nasal, and we believe it, as seen with the support from the US QIDP and the clinical data we're developing, which I think isn't always generated in some of the competitor products, we will have the overwhelming evidence if we complete phase 3 to support uptake in the market. But will always be competition. There have been big pharma have tried in this space with vaccine in the past to have a vaccine that could decolonize, but they failed. So it is a large market opportunity. So of course there will be some competition.
On the next question, I might struggle with some pronunciations, so please bear with me. Do you think XF73 may eventually be used for dental applications, for example, mouthwashes and toothpastes? Carrying on.
I think there are some opportunities in oral infections, but no, I think mouthwashes and toothpaste, I think because of course you're beginning to move away there from sort of medicines into a different world of legislation, medical devices, and again antiseptics. I don't think that's something that we'd look into in the short term, possibly as line extensions. I mean, there are some specific very nasty problems, say with radiotherapy and cancer treatments, oral mucositis, which is something we've looked at, which is a sort of very complicated damaged mucosa in the mouth, which sometimes prevents cancer treatment continuing. So these are some of the areas we're looking at, but these are quite specific sort of medical indications rather than something which, though important, toothpaste and mouthwashes is not an area we're looking at. We're a drug development company.
Next up, after phase 3 trial, how long will it take to get the NTCD-M3 drug onto the market?
Well, a good question. It does take time. You don't just finish the study and off you go. I mean, there's a lot of planning that can be done in advance. Training, sales force. Obviously, there's the approval process itself in the US. So a year would probably be an ambitious time period. It depends very much on the way the phase 3 is run. Are there any interim readouts where you get an interim review of how the study's going and your confidence? There's examples of companies that have been very ambitious, especially in America, in terms of pre-launch activities before they completed studies. But I think that's it's a little bit early to comment on that. But definitely there will be a gap between completing a study and regulatory approval and then launch.
You mentioned you'd used a contract manufacturer, or you will be using a contract manufacturer. When assuming you're successful in the trials, will you look to bring that in-house or to continue using contract manufacturing?
I think we'd always have a virtual contract manufacturer. Though this is specialized, it's not so specialized that you need to build an in-house capacity. We'd always look to have, we have more than one option now, but we definitely no, we wouldn't look to bring in manufacturing in short term So maybe, yeah, I say no, and it's that's not unusual in our industry.
Okay, last couple of questions. What experience of structuring these sorts of commercial/funding deals is there within the company? I think that's relating back again to the future fundraising.
Yeah, well, in terms of commercial partnering, myself, Stephanie Buick, Sean Claydon, as well as Bill, we've all done deals in the past, bought and sold companies, in-licensed, out-licensed. I think there's a good track record there. In terms of funding activities, I've been in 3 listed companies. Swings and roundabouts, not always easy times, but we've done several fundings through IPOs. Sean's been involved as a banker in many IPOs. Our chairman, Nick Rogers, was chairman of Oxford Biomedica for a decade. Obviously, he left there a few years ago, but he's helped grow that company, and indeed was an investment banker at Evolution Beast and Gregory, who were specialists in I'd say in AIM, life science technology companies in the sort of the 2000s. So experience, always willing to learn, and we work with expert consultants who are as we need them. But I think we're confident that we can deliver on the strategy. And also, we're humble enough to add expertise as we need it, be it for fundraising, for medical, for research, or for other corporate activities, in the UK or possibly America as an area where perhaps we should strengthen our presence. But we're very much open to that, as we've shown. It's all about growing the company and delivering value. We'll all benefit from that in the long run.
Lovely, Neil. On that one, we are actually now out of time. So thank you very much for joining us and presenting this evening.
Thanks very much. Have a good evening. Thanks for your help.